I am so excited that you came to join us because I think you
Thank
have the most
you.
unbelievable story. And I've
Thank
probably
you.
told a ton of people about it, but I want to get it completely out of you. So thank
From
you
the source.
from the source. Why don't you tell us, and I want to hear a little bit about the road from VC to entrepreneurship. So like
Okay.
how you started and how you got here and found yourself as a founder.
Okay. So I'll start from the very beginning, but try to tell the abridged version. Graduated from college, got my CPA license, became a certified public accountant at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is a big four accounting firm. Did that for a few years, realized that being a CPA is all about following rules. Literally, that's your entire job is to enforce rules. And a lot of those rules are stupid, and I did not agree with them. And realized I don't love following rules. And so realized I was definitely mismatched in my career. I loved numbers. I've always been very analytical, um, could read financial statements and all of that, but just being a CPA was not the right fit for me. So I decided to get into venture capital. After reading some blogs and doing some research, moved to San Francisco, joined a seed stage or series A stage venture capital fund, and started on in the back office doing finance and accounting, and eventually worked my way onto the investment team by really just showing up at the table. Like quite literally, there would be a pitch happening like in the boardroom, and I would just walk in and sit down, and people would be like, "Oh, what's Sarah from accounting doing here?" Like, okay, sure, stay. And I would just listen, take notes, and then eventually, after a couple months, started to interject and ask questions and offer the partners help in doing their diligence, which oftentimes was looking at financial statements, which again, I was very well versed in. And that's kind of how I got to the VC side. And through working in venture capital, I think the biggest learning was entrepreneurs are no different than any ordinary person. It's just having an idea and the guts to go make it happen that really is the differentiator between someone that starts a company and someone that doesn't. And so I decided that that was what I wanted to do and started to keep my eyes peeled for opportunities. For me, I was making the switch. I've always had very healthy diet, lifestyle. Wellness was always a big part of my life, and I started to make the switch to cleaner personal care products. And this was in 2016, 2017 when Goop was starting, and all of a sudden, all of us were like, "Hey, maybe we should turn over this bottle of body lotion I've been using every single day and look at the ingredient list and realize, hey, there's some toxic chemicals in these everyday body care products." And I started to make the switch to cleaner products. Deodorant was the one thing I could not find anything that worked for me. I was a marathon runner at the time, living a super active, busy lifestyle. And I could not find a deodorant that didn't have aluminum in it that lasted me till noon. So I set out to create something better after realizing this was a problem for other people as well. And the rest is history.
I love that because if you tie it back to what you were saying in the beginning, like what is Sarah from accounting doing here? When you're in the meetings, like how much of the entrepreneurship journey do you feel was that? Like putting
Oh,
your
just like demanding your seat at the table and not
yeah.
waiting to be invited. It's everything. Like again, like the difference between that, I think a lot of us glorify entrepreneurship. We glorify CEOs. You look at the cover of Forbes magazine. I remember being in college and seeing Sarah Blakely on the cover of Forbes and being like, wow, she must be a genius. You know, we look at these entrepreneurs and put them on a pedestal and go, wow, they must have something I don't. They must be a genius and have these brilliant ideas, or you have to invent something completely novel in order to be an entrepreneur. And that was a big learning for me in venture capital. And my job was literally to meet with entrepreneurs all day, every day. And after hundreds and hundreds of meetings, I'm like, these people are no different than your ordinary person. Like they literally just had an idea and the guts to go start it. And that that second part, the idea is the easy part. The starting it is the hard part. And Sam, you and I have talked about this, just like there's a lot of vulnerability in starting a company. Like had a really high paying job, amazing benefits, amazing lifestyle. And imagine how embarrassing it was, I guess, to go to all my friends and family and be like, hey guys, I know I've had this wonderful career in finance. I'm going to go start a deodorant company, actually. Like, that's what I'm going to go and do. And now it seems like it makes sense because my business has been successful. But at the time, they were like, what? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, why are you doing that? I think my mom literally asked me, like, why? Like, why would you do that? So starting something is like a very vulnerable place to be. And it really does require kind of, it's not just going to happen. And you really have to will it in those early days and, take your seat at the table, just like I did in venture capital.
Yeah. And you talk about the cover of the magazine, right? Or these people that we look at and it's like, oh, this is an incredible story. You read the books and it just compresses that journey into a really small period of time. So your brain thinks like, oh, they went from here to here to here. But there's a lot of time in between, okay, I'm going to start this. All of these people tell me I'm crazy. And then to your point, like the business is doing well. What was that journey like for you navigating, the season where you believed in it and you knew what you were building, but it hadn't materialized yet?
Yes. And I love talking about this because there are absolutely overnight successes. Like you hear about companies that went from 0 to 60 in 6 months or 12 months. Those are definitely the outliers. Like most businesses take time. There's a reason that venture capital funds typically have a 10-year life because 10 years is most of the time what it takes for a business to fully mature. So I think a lot of us, and myself included, looked at these overnight success stories and we're like, that's going to be me, of course. And then a year in, you're like, uh-oh. I mean, a year in, I think I had done maybe $100,000 in revenue, which is a good start, but definitely not an overnight success. Nobody's going to be acquiring $100,000 a year business. And so it was definitely a journey. And I definitely was not one of those entrepreneurs that has the overnight success story. I've been doing this for 5 years now. And really just in the last 10 to 12 months has the business really taken off. So the part that I don't think a lot of people see is, now you can Google us and we're in the news and, our business has a lot more brand awareness. Curie has a lot more brand awareness. But what people don't talk about is those 4 years that no one had ever heard of us. And I was quite literally like pushing a boulder up a hill. And that is the challenging part. And that's the part where a lot of people quit and lose steam. And I really think that's like what makes all the difference is having that patience and tenacity to keep going, even during, those periods where it feels like everything is against you.
And a lot of things are, right? Like you have like the structural challenges. I mean, especially CPG, especially D2C over the last few years, like it's an expensive business to start up in, like to build your product and to find how to market it and all these channels. Coming from VC, were you interested in that world or how did you want to finance it?
Yeah, so the beauty of CPG as opposed to, a tech company, for example, I was really intentional about the business that I was starting and making sure that it was something that I could start with limited capital because I didn't want to, even though I had the VC background, and this is a whole other webinar, why I chose not to go the VC route, but I didn't believe that VC, and I still don't believe that VC is the best model for CPG, especially a brand like mine where our products are low price point. Our stick of deodorant is $12 to $14. The cogs on that are, single digit dollars. And I also felt like in the age of TikTok, Instagram, that there were so many opportunities to market the business organically. I was like, I think I can get this off the ground without having to raise millions of dollars. I know tech is totally different. You know, you really have to invest in team and grind for sometimes years before you have a product that can actually start making money. So I think, you know, that is what VC was created for. I didn't at the time, and I still kind of don't believe that that's the right model for CPG. Also, I don't think it's necessary in all cases. And so my goal was to get something off the ground. I did. I started Curie with $12,000 in my savings, like put 80 to 90% of that into the actual products, designed the packaging myself. I didn't pay any money to designers. I really bootstrapped it and did things like very, very scrappily so that I could basically go out and spend the first 6 months to test the waters. Like, is this something people want? Does it work? Like, is the brand resonating with people? Is this something I want to dedicate myself to? You know, you raise outside capital, you're locking yourself in to years of working on whatever that business is. And so I also was like, I kind of just wanted the flexibility to try something and see if I could generate some revenue and some profit and figure out what I wanted to do from there. And then kind of left the door open if I wanted to raise money or not raise money. I did end up raising a couple $100,000 of friends and family outside capital, just in the form of a safe note. But that was back in 2020. So it's now been over 3 years since we've raised. And so I do consider us, you know, bootstrapped. We're profitable. We're self-funded, funding the business through our profit, and don't plan to raise outside capital, at least anytime soon.
Yeah, it's absolutely bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Correct, definitely.
We did raise a little bit of money, but yes, we are bootstrapped at this point. Just it's been a while.
And for people that are tuning in that, you know, may not be as familiar with capital, like, to bootstrap something to profitability is a massive win. So props to you on that. And
thank you.
I'd love to kind of break it into two pieces, like the startup phase and then the scale phase, because you've done both. But tactically, like, you have this business idea, you want to launch D2C. Like, what do you think are the most important things for people to be considering if they're launching a CPG brand that's D2C focused?
So are we talking bootstrapped or with capital?
Let's assume bootstrapped because we're following your journey.
Okay. Bootstrapped. Okay. I first will say, talk to people that are starting now, because this CPG in particular, things move and change so quickly that someone who started their business even a year ago, but especially, you know, I started mine 5 years ago, the landscape changes so fast. Like 5 years ago, I don't even think TikTok existed. 5 years ago, it was possible to get organic views on Instagram. Just that was all I was doing, is posting Instagram stories and posts, and they'd get thousands and thousands of views and things would easily go viral. That's not the case anymore on Instagram. So I think that this landscape changes really, really quickly. And that's my number one piece of advice, is to just understand the landscape now. Like, you are about to launch your business right now. Where are the big opportunities for you? And really understand. And I think number two is like networking like crazy. That's what I did when I started. I talked to and still have relationships with those people, those dozens of founders that I spoke with when I started my business. And that was really valuable, and a good use of my time was talking to people and just saying, hey, what's working for you? And in return, it created these relationships where we still talk. I have multiple group chats with entrepreneurs where we're just still asking each other, what's working for you? What's working for you? Here's the work for me. Hey, I spent this money. It wasn't good use of our time and capital. So number one is like, learn the industry and learn the landscape of where it's at right now in this moment. Facebook ads, for example, 5-6 years ago, if you put $100 into the Facebook ad machine, like 1,000 would come out, and that's not the case anymore either. So one, learn the landscape in this moment when you're about to launch. Two, form a network. That's what I did. It was super valuable. And then three, one thing I did when I started that I would definitely do again if I were to start a brand new company right now, was in the early days, like I really leaned on my community. I remember right before I launched Curie, I didn't have any money left over for marketing or anything. So I just emailed Sam, like, I'm not kidding. I dug through every email contact that I had ever emailed in my life on Gmail. Like I went through, went down the rabbit hole, finding people that I had once worked with for 6 months back in, 2012, and emailed all those people. So it was probably, hundreds and hundreds of people, emailed them all and was just like, hey guys, I'm launching my company. It's just me. I'm bootstrapped. Would you please like consider supporting me? And here's some ways that you could support me. One, like buy the product. Two, buy the product, share it on your Instagram. Three, buy the product for your friends and family or neighbors. Like gave them a bunch of ideas. And that really, I swear, like that drove the first 25 grand that we made. And then people were posting on their Instagrams and their friends were buying it and their friends were buying it. And so I think that's a strategy I would probably still use because it's free and easy. So lean on your network, especially in the early days.
I love that because I think it really applies to even if you're not a founder, right? Like say you're at a different level of the organization, but find people that are solving the problems that you're solving. And then build a community of those people that you can interact with, and then ask directly for help. Like all three of those steps I think are required.
No shame. And just not having shame, not feeling embarrassed. Another piece of advice is if you're bootstrapping, don't quit your job too early. So I still had a job 2 years in, I think it was about a year and a half in is when I quit my job. And that really helped alleviate the pressure because it takes a while to turn a profit, and you're not going to want to have to pay yourself or worry and stress about having to pay yourself in the early days. So anyone who's bootstrapping, I'm like, try to just keep your job. And for me, I ended up actually getting it was a part-time role at a startup. So I left venture and worked part-time for a startup that was actually one of our portfolio companies. And that was perfect because I was making, it was part-time. So not living in the lap of luxury, but I had enough cash where I didn't have to worry about paying myself from Curie's resources for a long time. And number two, I also didn't have the stress and pressure of being like, we have to launch, we have to get the product out there because, I need to make money. I was able to kind of take my time. And so we iterated on the formula for like 7 or 8 months before we actually finalized it. And, maybe if I had quit my job and put all my eggs in this basket, like I would have been more eager to just get the product out there, even though it's not perfect. But I knew, no one's going to buy it if it doesn't work. So let's do it right. And I don't have that time pressure. So having a job or source of income, super crucial if you're going to be bootstrapping.
Yeah, I mean, it's like stress on the body, right? It will impact your decision making.
Totally. You don't make good decisions when you're like frazzled and stressed, and especially money, like having to stress about money and paying your rent, just not worth it. I definitely think if you can get a part-time job, or even I know people who have had full-time jobs, and it's going to be busy and crazy, but it was definitely worth it.
And it carries you through the story, right? Where like D2C is growing, things are going well, you're scaling, using that like Facebook ad engine. But something comes along where you're like, is it an idea? Is it a desire? You want to get to retail. Like, how does that unfold for you?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be in retail. I think from the very beginning, I was finding the buyer at Nordstrom's LinkedIn and sending her cold messages. I was emailing Ulta, Target, like all the retailers. I really wanted to be in retail because deodorant is something that I never even given intro to Curie, but we sell deodorant in case you haven't figured that out so far, but we started with our aluminum-free deodorant stick. Now we have a full line of body care products, including our full body spray deodorant, our armpit detox mask, body wash. So that's the brand, if you haven't already Googled us. But the deodorant, it's something that you replenish. And I personally used to just buy my deodorant at CVS or Target when I would be shopping. So I knew that that was like the consumer behavior, and I wanted to make it easy and convenient for people to restock our products. So I wanted to be in retail from the very beginning, got tons and tons of no's, like rejection after rejection from every retailer you can imagine. And I would ask for feedback. So if we got, a no, I would say, hi, is there any feedback you have, anything that we could work on and improve? I think one thing is I always took the no's as like, not right now. Very, very important key to success as an entrepreneur. You're going to get a lot of no's. And if I just saw those no's and was like, well, I guess I'm never going to get in there, I would not have gotten where I am today. I got a no from Shark Tank too before I got on Shark Tank. So lesson there is always hear that no and get as much feedback as you can, and then set a calendar reminder for 6 months, a year from then, and follow up. And a lot of times those no's are just a no, not right now, and will turn into a yes in the future. And that was definitely my experience with retail. A lot of those retailers that said no, their feedback was, you guys are too small, you don't have enough brand awareness. And so I started to learn and listen and ask questions, and I was like, oh, okay. So it really takes brand awareness to do well in retail. People aren't just going to walk into Target or Walmart or whatever, see a brand new product and throw it in their cart and try it out. Most likely, like in most cases, they see the product, they recognize it. Someone has told them about it, they've seen it before, they've used it before, and they add it to their cart. That's the most likely scenario. And so I kept hearing this feedback, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to put my head down and focus on building the brand to be as big as I can, so that there's brand awareness, and it'll help us attract retailers' attention, and it'll help us do well if we get into retail. So that's exactly what I did. And then, what happened? We got a cold email from Walmart at the beginning. It was like March of this year. Got a cold email from Walmart, and they wanted to put us into all doors. And now we're in all 4,300 Walmart doors.
And what was that process like? Going from, okay, I'm going to do D2C to now I'm in every Walmart.
Yeah, it was a big adjustment. I don't recommend it for if you are a brand new brand. I definitely think going into retail was something that I think everything happened for a reason, as hokey as that sounds, but like the timing of everything was really happened. It was how it had to have happened. Like we were a small nascent brand, and then boom, we got onto Shark Tank. That, our episode went viral, the business grew exponentially in this year since we aired on Shark Tank. And we started to spend on Facebook, and boom, our Facebook spend, shot up 10x and was super profitable. We were reaching tens of millions of customers through Facebook every month. And so it was kind of this perfect storm of like Curie just growing and growing and growing. And then boom, Walmart reached out like at that perfect moment. And again, I was like, that brand awareness not only attracted Walmart buyers' attention, but it also helps us to stand out on the shelves. Now if someone walks into Walmart, a lot of those people that are walking through the naturals aisle, which is where we are, have heard of us, and they've maybe gotten a Facebook ad in the last 6 months, or they saw our episode on Shark Tank, or saw us on social media. And so I think the timing of it worked out perfectly how it needed to. And I think we also just were in a place where we were big enough, we had a big enough direct to consumer business when we launched in Walmart that it wasn't as big of a risk as it would have been if we got into Walmart a year prior, or even especially 2 years prior, which is when I wanted to, get into retail. I'm really grateful it happened how it did, because I don't think I realized now in hindsight, how big of a risk it is to go into retail.
Mm-hmm. I believe like God, universe, protecting timing. Like there's a reason it didn't happen 2 years ago and the business had to be ready for it. And I'm sure if you could go back to Sarah, 3 months prior to that DM, or even prior to going live, like there are things today that you would have loved to know then about retail. So if there's someone that's listening in that's like on the precipice of that, they're about to launch into retail, what would you want them to know that you didn't know then?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, this could be a whole other webinar, but to like kind of summarize, I think first is negotiate. I think, well, actually before that, if you don't know retail, like maybe if you've worked in retail or you've been in, have some experience with retail, this maybe doesn't apply to you, but I didn't. I was a D2C founder for the first several years of my business, and we didn't have any experience except for some small retailers. But so I hired a broker. And hiring a broker, it's expensive. You typically pay a percentage of the revenue from your retail sales, but it's worth every penny if you don't quite know what you're doing. So first, if you don't know anything, like me, hire a broker. It's kind of like if you were an actress and you didn't have an agent. Like having an agent is really important to helping you understand contracts and what to ask for, what to negotiate for. That's exactly what a broker does for a business. So they're the ones that are helping us understand every term, what we should be pushing for, what doesn't matter, what really matters. So hire a broker if you don't know what you're doing. Second, negotiate like the terms up front, because that is really, really important and really does like make or break businesses within retail. For example, I've heard some horror stories. This isn't with Walmart, but I've heard some stories with some retailers that, if you don't negotiate certain terms, like they can send back all your inventory and you have to buy it back. And that's something that I've heard like has taken down businesses. So being able to negotiating those terms up front is really, really important, and making sure you're getting what you need from the jump, super important. So those are first two. Third one would be just to be realistic about the forecast and making sure you're not getting over your skis with inventory. Again, this is partly why you don't want to go into big retail when you're really brand new and have it become 99% of your business, because if things don't go well, they're not under an obligation to continue purchasing. And if you purchase all this inventory expecting to do X and it does Y, you might be left holding the bag. And so that's something I would definitely like be really cognizant about. It's easy to get really excited, but then you have to be like, all right, you have to kind of be a pessimist going into it and go, all right, if things don't go according to plan, could this put us out of business if we're stuck with all this excess inventory and they never order again? So I think that's a big one, is like having a plan. And, like I said, we have a big enough direct to consumer business. We're just now launching on Amazon. There's other places that the business can absorb any excess inventory if that were to happen. So just kind of have that plan B and don't go into it like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like have a healthy level of skepticism.
The accountant in you coming back.
Yeah.
Look at the spreadsheet, look at the forecast, see what's going on.
Yeah. And be realistic. If you're looking at that forecast going, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like it might be. It might be crazy. So be realistic. Yeah. And be honest with your buyer. Like I think that's also something, especially as women, we're like, oh, we don't want to ask too many questions or make them think that we don't believe in the business. Like, no, be realistic and have that conversation with your buyer and make sure they understand how big your business is. Like they want you to be successful. So being honest and making sure that you're not getting yourself in a position like that you're in over your head with inventory is really important, because that's like the biggest misstep that I've seen with brands going into retail.
And that's great because it's so tactical. Like you can work that, you can work with your broker. I could ask you questions all day, and I probably would if I was able to. I'm going to ask you one
I'm like,
more.
what time is it? Okay.
And then we're going to open it up
some
to the
time.
audience.
Cool.
Where does the name come from? And what is the future of the brand?
Okay, so name is Marie Curie. When I was naming Curie, okay, this is actually one of my other tips if you're about to start a brand, is do a trademark search before you print your packaging. I named the brand something else, and the trademark was already taken. So I ended up at the 11th hour having to reprint all of our labels and change the name. But I'm really grateful that that happened again. There's a reason for everything, because we got the name Curie, which I came up with because I wanted to, at the time the brand was, I was building Curie for women. Now we have, tons of male customers as well. But at the time when I launched, it was for women, and I wanted something, deodorant gives you deodorant, and having BO, it's like a big component of your confidence. And so I wanted something that was going to be empowering for women and make people feel their best and most confident self. And so I felt like it was appropriate to name my business after a strong woman and trailblazer, and Marie Curie is exactly that. I did a book report on her in elementary school, and she kind of just stuck with me. And so I named my business after Marie Curie, the famous.
Do you have the report?
Scientist. No, definitely not. Oh. It was like one of those fold giant boards. My mom would be crazy to keep that.
Be great content.
It would. I wish I had, like, it was like the kind of thing you presented at the like fair. And I wish I had a picture of me like in front of it. That would be hilarious.
It's like the thing about the thing you do as a child is like what motivates you later in life.
Yeah, I know. It was actually kind of funny how it all happened. I had this like book that I picked up at a flea market or something, that or like a used bookstore, that was 100 powerful women in history. And I like picked it up and was like, oh, this will make a cute coffee table book. And as I was like sitting there in my living room, devastated because I didn't get the trademark I wanted, I started flipping through the book, being like, all right, maybe I'll get some inspiration in here. And one of the first ones I flipped open was Marie Curie. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so perfect. Oh, yeah. And there's lots of play on words with Curie, like curious, and there's so many like little signs. She also, her birthday is the day after mine. We're both Scorpios. We so much in common.
Well, so what was the book? It was Powerful Women Making History.
It was
right?
like a cute little like coffee table book about powerful, female trailblazers, A to Z or something like that. And it had like little biographies.
Talking about trailblazing women making history, where are we going? Like, what's the
good question. I mean, I don't have a great answer for that. It's continuing to grow the business, continuing to launch new products that people actually want. We take talk to our customers a lot, and every decision we make is super, super intentional. We're not just out here trying to flood the world with more products and more stuff. We're just trying to be intentional and make products that our customers really want. And we have, a really engaged sniff club, which is our invite only kind of like loyalty members club. We do Zoom calls with them quarterly, and we're literally like, what do you want to see from us? And that's goes into our product pipeline, and that's what we create. So I think launching new products, but continuing to be like very intentional about it. And yeah, continuing to grow the business and reach more people. And I just love what I do. I love hearing from our customers and seeing the impact that we have on our customers. But I also love having a team. Like, that was something I really didn't have for those first 3 years. And so it's really recent that I've been able to build a team, and I love coaching and seeing my team members grow. We have a lot of young team members that joined us fresh out of college, and it's so fun and rewarding to like teach them and see them grow. And, now they're leading projects on their own and have gotten so much confidence from being able to have that much control at such a young age. Like most people in their early 20s go into these jobs and are making coffee and making copies. But I think that's the beauty of a startup. And I love getting to like grow and nurture my team. So I want to keep doing this as long as possible and, be a household name.
Love that. Love that mic drop at
Yeah.
the end. And be a
Yeah.
household name.
We're going to be a household name. Yeah, we will. Mark my word.
Well, that leads up well to one of the audience questions we got, which was, how do you approach building brand awareness, both online and offline?
Yeah, it's tricky. I even hate saying brand awareness because it's such a like fluff. It's like, what is brand awareness? But to me, brand awareness is, there's many ways. Like, I think people hear brand awareness and they go like, oh, billboards, like that, those activities that are just putting the brand out into the world, but not necessarily selling. I do think though, that in the early days of a business, you should not be paying for low ROI brand awareness plays like billboards. So I'm just going to start by saying that when I say you got to build brand awareness to get into retail, like don't fall into that trap of spending your limited capital on things that aren't ROI driven and aren't measurable like a billboard. Because brand awareness can come in many forms. So for example, Facebook ads, you wouldn't think Facebook ads are driving brand awareness. Like that's true pay-per-click advertising. But it is, because you're reaching tens of millions of users across those platforms that you're advertising on. And even if they're not clicking or purchasing the product, they're seeing it and they're registering it. So a lot of times when I meet someone and I'm talking about Curie, they'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've gotten your ads before. You're the girl from Shark Tank and da 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 da. I'm like, oh, interesting. So maybe they didn't buy, but they still saw the ad. And typically, I can't remember the metric, but it's like it takes 5 or 6 impressions for someone to make a purchase. And so I think of all those different touch points, Facebook ads, organic social media, TikTok, email marketing, all those touch points that a brand is, even retail. Like we're in SoulCycle and Equinox, for example, our deodorants in their locker rooms. That's for people to use for free. That's a touch point. They're seeing the product, maybe they're even using it. That counts as one of those like 6 touch points. And that's, I think, how you build up brand awareness. I don't think it's something that you can just be like, boom, snap your fingers and have brand awareness. It's many, many, many different activities over a long period of time that just builds up not only a bigger customer base, but just more people knowing about your brand. So that was kind of a roundabout way of talking about it. But the biggest ways that we generate brand awareness, obviously, Shark Tank was huge. That's like millions of people watch that show. I go on QVC a couple times a year, also millions of viewers. We do mostly Facebook marketing. That's our main source of like new customer acquisition. We've done a little bit of spending on out of home marketing. Like we did some like wrapped trucks in major markets. But again, like I don't recommend that type of activity if you're just starting out. Really do the things that like you can measure and scale. Influencers are a great one as well. But all that stuff, just think of it as like touch points, and you got to get those 5 touch points.
No, that was actually a perfect description, because it kind of shows the like full funnel attribution where, say I saw you on Shark Tank and then I see it on QVC or something. But if I go to SoulCycle and I see it 3 times while I'm getting ready for class, that counts as 3 touch points, even though it's like one relationship for you to unlock at scale. So super interesting.
For example, we just started sending postcards. Postpilot is the company. You can like send little postcards in the mail, and that is a touch point. It's like someone maybe got an ad, they got an email from us, and boom, they see a postcard. Even if they toss it in the trash, like it just is that 1 second where you see the brand, and that counts as well. So it's just like, you want to just get your brand in front of as many eyeballs as possible for as cheap as possible.
As cheap as possible. Retweet. And then another question we had was more on the product side.
Okay.
How did you formulate your product, and like how has that evolved over time? But how'd you find people to work with, or how'd you produce?
Good question. That was something that my most commonly asked question, but that's something that I have learned is that it's a really small network of there's a really small network of manufacturers in the US. We make all our products in the US. But there's this pretty small network of them, and it's really about like tapping into that network and finding the right ones that make the right things that you're trying to make. So, you know, there'll be a manufacturer and they make all hot pour products, and you know, it was a process of learning, like, what is hot pour? Okay, hot pour means a deodorant, a lip balm, something that's like a wax or that you pour warm and it turns into a solid. And so that's how these manufacturers work, is like they each have their specialty. Some of them do color cosmetics, some of them do powders, some of them do lotions and creams. Like, so first, just taking the time, again, networking, understanding the industry and the landscape. And then I was like, all right, so then each one has their specialty. I'm going to go talk to all the ones that do hot pours, because we're going to do a wax-based deodorant. I went to Google, Googled it. That was how I first started to find manufacturers. I also went to, there's a great conference in Vegas every year called Cosmoprof. They take over the Las Vegas Convention Center. Every manufacturer from all over the world, like US, China, and beyond, come and have booths. That's a really great, easy way to just knock it all out. They have manufacturers have booths there, packaging manufacturers have booths there. And if nothing else, it's a great way just to like learn and understand and really understand how the industry works. But most of these manufacturers have formulators in-house. And again, if they're specialized in hot pour, they'll have formulators that have been making deodorant and lip balm for 25 years. And so most of these places will help you with the formulations, and that's typically at no cost because the expectation is that you manufacture there. We do have a couple of our products, the best sellers, that we did manufacture, that we did formulate on our own with expert formulators that we had relationships with, but that didn't happen until like year 4. So early days, go find the manufacturers, and most of those manufacturers will have in-house like chemists that can help you formulate the products.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This has been so great.
Yeah,
for so
it
many
was
ways.
really fun and great questions. I feel like we covered a lot. And anyone that has additional questions, I am super active on Twitter. It's probably the best place to get a hold of me, or Instagram. That's a Moret is my handle, or Sarah J. Moret on Instagram, and DM me, ask questions. Like I'm always happy to help.
Sarah's an open book, asks for questions all the time. And if you want to support her, walk into a Walmart. You said you're in the naturals section?
Walk into a Walmart, go to the naturals aisle, which is where Dr. Squatch, for Ease, like all the natural products are, in the personal care section, and try our products out.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you for the questions.